here today is we're going to talk about the state of the market for 2023. First half review. So we're going to start with looking at the MLS. So for those of you that have never seen the MLS before, this is what it looks like. There's this button up here at the top called stats. And primarily everything we do is in the residential. So I always just do residential. And I always click on for sale properties and residential properties down here. And then I click on St. Charles and St. Louis counties because that's where 90% of what we lend on and what we do is in one of those two counties. So, and then there's some different reports you can run. I'm going to start with months of inventory because that's one that always gives you a good indication of where the market is right now. Is it a buyer's market, a seller's market, so forth. So, okay, so here's what we got. And so this is a chart over the last 5 years of months of inventory for every month throughout the year. So you can see right now we're over here just under 1 month of inventory. So I mean, that's super low for anybody that doesn't know. I'm going to customize this, take it back. I wish I could take this back 20 years so everybody could see what happened during the last financial crisis, but it only goes back 10 years, unfortunately. So this is the last 10 years. So you can see back in 2013, 14, 15, 16, you know, generally it was somewhere between 3 and 5 months of inventory. Then we got 2016 through 2020. It was pretty much between 2 and 3 months worth of inventory. And then the pandemic happened and inventory just got down really tight. So basically where it's been, give or take about 1 month's worth of inventory. And then we can dig in here a little deeper into the data. And I always like to compare this month versus the same month the last several years. So this month we got 0.93 months of inventory. So less than a month, less than 1 month's worth compared to 0.9 last year, 0.8 the year before. So slightly more than the last 2 years, but give or take about the same thing, but a lot less than 2020 and 2019 and going back to 18, 17, 16. So anyway, very little inventory on the market right now. All right, so a couple other things I like to look at. I like to look at the number of listings. So I'm going to go ahead and take a number of listings. And it does it thinks, there we go. So the number of listings we have, obviously the months of inventory is down, but it's down in large part because the amount of inventory is so low. So you can see the number of listings we got right now is roughly 1,500, which is relatively consistent with what it's been for the last year or so, but way below what it was, you know, in previous years. So, and I always like to pop in here to data and just compare this month versus the same month last couple of years. So 1,500 houses on the market right now versus 1,800 a year ago versus 1,800 2 years ago versus 2,900 3 years ago, 4,300 4 years ago. So just very, very little inventory on the market. All right. And then I always like to jump in and compare that with number of sales. So those are the number of active listings. So how does that compare with the number of sales? And you can see this one's a little different. Kind of, you know, it's seasonal, but it's been relatively consistent over the last 10 years. And if you go in here, the data, dig in a little bit more. We had 1,600 sales in 2023 in June versus 2,000 in 2022, 2,300 in 2021, 2020, 2019, 2,100. You can see it's been pretty darn consistent. So what does that say? I'm going to pop out because I like to see everybody. So what's that say? Number of sales has been relatively consistent over the last 10 years, where the inventory is just dropped. And therefore, it's kind of pushed up values a lot over the last 10 years. So I don't know. Any takeaways from that?
I think it shows that, I mean, so I feel like in a normal market, like when we talk about like pre-COVID, you used to say like a healthy market had like an inventory of like, isn't it like 3 to 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every quarter, every 6 months, you do these state of the markets, and we're always looking at the last couple of years, the sales have been higher than the number of active listings. But I thought about like at the beginning of the year, like late last year, it felt like the market kind of stalled. And I did notice that on like the graph, it did show less sales during that like December, January, February.
Yeah.
Which I felt like we could feel, like borrowers were feeling, like everyone was kind of feeling that. But we're back again to being like, oh, everything's selling right away and selling at list. So it makes you wonder, like, are you going to see that trend again this fall or not? Who knows?
Yeah, so basically what you're just looking back here. So this is the number of sales for the last 10 years. So yeah, you can see in June we did 1,600. In January, we only did 800. Now, you can also see that it's seasonal, and it's always seasonal. So the typical January is way less than the typical June. But I agree with you. This past January, for whatever reason, it was definitely slow. There's no doubt about that. Comparatively, just a little slower than the typical year, but it just seems so slow because we're so used to everything being so hot. But yeah, all Januaries are slow-ish, I would say.
It's just fascinating how you get used to that so quickly. Like it just takes like 1 month for everything to go fast, and that's just becomes the norm. And then when it shifts, people really feel it. But
Yes.
traditionally, real estate is very cyclical.
Well, and I think we've all, well, let me just kind of continue on here. So great feedback. Thank you. So next thing I'm going to talk about here is I like to compare how are values doing. So I pulled up this chart. This is it's a federal government chart of some sort, FHFA. I don't even know exactly what that stands for, Federal Home Finance Organization or something crazy like that. But I thought this was interesting. So this is a chart that they put out recently, and I'll go to St. Louis here real quick. St. Louis, year over year. So this column is year over year change in the values of real estate. Oh, did I forget to share? I'm talking about something you guys can't see. That's not very, thank you for jumping in, whoever jumped in. So this is FHFA House Price Index, Federal Housing Finance Agency. So they track all the different cities around the country, or the big cities anyway. And jumping in here to St. Louis, year over year had a price increase of 5.9% on average. Our real estate went up on average 5.9% over the last year. And quarter over quarter, so over the last quarter, it went up 2.1%, which I don't know. I thought that felt like kind of what I felt over the last year. But I thought this was a fun chart to look at because Miami went up 14% over the last year, where on the other opposite end of the spectrum, San Francisco went down 10% over the last year. So I don't know what to make of all that, but I just thought it was interesting that the market is definitely not the same throughout the country. Some places are really doing well. Some places are really not doing well. But year over year, we did 5.9%, which I think was about average, and I feel like that's kind of what we do here in the St. Louis area is typically about average. Quarter over quarter, though, we're still up 2%, where you can see there's a lot of places that were basically flat or even slightly negative. So I don't know what to make of that, but I just found that interesting. Any thoughts or takeaways from that? Tyler Weiss says, interesting, Kansas City up only 3.2%.
Brian, I've always thought that the Midwest hasn't really been as have those highs and lows that the East and the West Coast has had.
Yes.
So, I mean, we have little fluctuations, but we don't have those giant curves that the coast, both the coasts have.
I agree with that. And Tyler asked me to share the screen again, so I will. Thanks for asking, Tyler. If there's any city anybody wants me to point out, feel free to just shout it out and I'll grab it. But yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about living in the Midwest, Emily, is that we don't have, you know, the high highs or the low lows. We're kind of like the little engine that keeps on a chugging, you know, I think that's a beautiful thing for real estate.
I know I see those up 14 and 12%, and I'm like, that feels honestly a little scary because it feels more volatile versus like a more consistent, steady, like.
And that's over the last year. Can you imagine what it was over the last 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, that just feels wild.
I want to
Yeah.
know what's happening in Wichita, Kansas, that it's up so much.
Where's that one at? Wichita? Yeah, 10%
Number 8.
Wichita. Yeah. Very nice. Sedona's not on here, but Arizona is not looking so good. I just bought a house in Sedona, so bummer for me, huh?
But I feel like Phoenix is historically known too for having high highs and low lows because they got really burned during the last crash, didn't they?
Yes, for sure. And then they had just this incredible run up over the last 10 years. I mean, values pretty much doubled through the pandemic in Arizona.
Yeah.
Craziness. All right. Any other feedback or comment on that one? All right. I'm going to keep moving on. Interest rates today. Obviously, interest rates affect values of houses. Today, I Googled the mortgage rate, and bankrate.com says the average 30-year fixed rate right now is 7.1%. And the local banks that I've been talking to or hearing about lately are generally in that 7.5% to 8.5% range. Anyway, that's kind of where rates are at today. I thought it'd be good to just kind of talk about some anecdotal thoughts. So, you know, we can see what the stats say in the MLS and at the federal government and what it says for interest rates. But anecdotally, and Suzanne kind of referenced this just a little bit earlier, I'm going to share my thoughts on the real estate market over the last year or so. And I would love to hear everybody's or anybody's input. So jump in. But to me, what I've seen over the last few years is we had this crazy hot real estate market, probably the hottest, well, I would say definitely the hottest that I've ever seen in my life. And I've been in the real estate business for 30 years. Hottest I ever seen was a year ago, a little over a year ago. We are getting these crazy, you throw a house on the market and it would sell for, you'd get 20 offers, you know, well over list price, and it would sell for 30, 40, 50 grand over list price. It was just crazy. And people would waive appraisal contingencies, waive inspections, waive everything in the, you know, they just wanted a house. So that was where we were a year ago. And then kind of throughout the, you know, interest rates started going up about this time a year ago, or a little earlier, a little more than a year ago. The market started to slow down through the summer and fall, and even slowed down a little bit in the winter, where, you know, when I say slow down, I feel like it slowed down to where in the fall, you would throw a house on the market, and I'm saying fall of 2022 here. Fall of 22, you throw a house on the market, and you would generally sell it within the first few days, but it would be at list or maybe slightly above list or slightly below list. And then in the winter, it got to the point where the house might sit for a week, and then you'd sell it for list, or sit for 2 weeks and then it would sell for list. And I'm all talking about houses that are fixed up nice and priced right. So, it slowed down through the winter, but then this in 2023 started, and the spring was way more resilient than I expected. Because if you had, I probably did one of these state of the markets in January, or if anybody that came to Buyers Club, I kind of talked about Schroedernomics. I fully expected the market to slow down this year, and I was 100% wrong. So don't ever listen to any predictions that I say about the market, because the market's been just way more resilient and way hotter than I expected it to be this spring and early summer. So and generally, I think we've gotten back to where through the spring and early summer, I think houses generally sold, within a week at list or over list price for the most part over the last few, spring and summer here so far. The rental market, it's been kind of interesting too. I feel like I thought that rents were going to kind of like stabilize and stop going up, but in St. Louis, it appears to me that rents have continued to go up through the spring. My take on it is there's so many fewer landlords buying right now than there were a year ago or 2 years ago, that there's just less inventory hitting the market. So, houses are renting fast as long as they're, priced right and show well. Houses are renting fast at good prices. So my take on the real estate market, both resale and rental, is we had a really good first half of the year, and values went up a little and rents went up a little, and things rented and sold quickly. I know there's exceptions here or there, but generally that's kind of my anecdotal thoughts for the first half of the year. Any feedback on that? Is that kind of what you guys have seen, or anything else?
That's what I've been seeing. I think the other thing that I noticed last fall and winter is, the last couple of years, the market has been so hot that people, I feel like we're able to like forget the little details and stuff with their rehab. And that kind of hurt them when people did get a little pickier later fall and winter timeframe. And for me, it was a good reminder to just make sure that when you're putting a house out on the market, like go through and make sure you're still putting out a good product. Because if you forget to do something like have all the outlet covers match, or you update half the light fixtures and not the other half, like things that people were able to get away with when the market is really crazy. Just make sure that if you feel the market slowing down or changing, to pay attention to those details. And I have noticed just the last like month or so, people who are maybe listing it a little too high or trying to list it where the neighborhood like highest sale is at. Sometimes they're not getting as much traction on their listing. We noticed that with a rehab we did. I feel like we ended up selling it for list price, but we definitely put it out on the higher end and didn't get as many showings. So I think just being cognizant of all that is beneficial.
Yeah, our particular house, we listed the one Suzanne's talking about there. I think we listed it on a Thursday, and we had like
2 showings
over the weekend. Yeah, exactly. Something like that. And then we did end up selling it within about a week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we sold it for list price. So it all worked out fine, but we just didn't have that much traffic, not as much as I would have predicted. So I want to get some other feedback from a couple other people. Rick, I know you've listed some houses during the spring and early summer. What's your experience been?
I guess really only one this spring, and it went for way over list.
Nice.
It was in Spanish Lake. Emily was a little skeptical of the value when I was borrowing on it, but it listed for 199 and sold for 230.
In Spanish Lake.
Within, yeah, within the first couple days of showing. It had maybe 7 showings and 3 or 4 offers. So it wasn't, a 30 showing kind of house. Because some people, some people automatically cross Spanish Lake off their list,
Yeah.
whatever. But it was a cute house and turned out well.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. Anybody else list anything? Michael Hammond, you list anything this spring or summer? Or rent for sale or for rent?
Just finished Lackland, so we're gonna be putting that up. Taking some vacation days, which is why I'm on. So I get to go clean that one up, but we're gonna list that for rent here pretty shortly, as soon as I work with Lexus to get that prepped for go. In fact, I just got a call today on that property. She's got a voucher. I don't know if we're gonna do that, but it was a reference from the occupant of the house that I have across the street. Calls me out of the blue today.
Gotcha.
So I don't know, we'll see. And I got 2 others that are in the rehab process right now, kind of in early, so we'll figure out where we are. But prior to the year, I sold 2 and was very successful.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thanks for the feedback there, Michael. All right, so anybody else got any anecdotal thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move on. All right.
Oh, sorry, Brian. Can
Go
you hear
ahead.
me? It's
Yeah, is
Marianne.
that-
Can you hear me all right? All right.
Marianne, how are you, girl?
Good. How are you?
Super good. Thanks for lunch last week. I appreciate it. That was awful
Oh, it
nice.
was-
And thanks for the Facebook post. That was super
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, it's always great to see you. So
And Brian and I talked, but I had dental work. I can't feel my face, so Marianne's gonna talk.
Yeah.
Well, give us some anecdotal feedback, Marianne.
yeah, honestly, the market,
She's better anyway.
the market's been, I think it's completely unpredictable, to tell you the truth. And Suzanne said that, you list some on the higher end and it kind of sits. So we've seen things all over the board. So in general, though, I can say that our listings are going under contract the first weekend. And typically at list or slightly above list, and we're getting, 1 to 3 offers. Now, with
Yeah.
that being said, we had a one-off at 40,000 above list and 5 offers. And then I had another listing that had like 16 showings, and we didn't get an offer the first weekend, but we did price it a little high, a little higher on the market. So honestly, it's hard to tell, in my opinion, what people are gonna go crazy on and submit over list and remove all the contingencies, and what they're going to just come in at list for. So
And Brian, we've done 8 rehabs this year, and then Marianne has listed a few others. Our rehabs are selling, but I'm anal retentive and my rehab are perfect. So I can appreciate what Suzanne said.
Yeah.
Marianne's listed some traditional stuff too. But if it's a good product at a good price, it's gonna sell, and that will be timeless.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thanks for the feedback, some guy, Marianne and Jeremy. But yeah, I think we all kind of know where the market is and has been. So let's move into the predictions, even though we all know that ignore any predictions that I do, but let's do it anyway. It's a fun game, right? So I would love everybody to throw in the chat. Do you think values are going to be higher at the end of the year or lower at the end of the year? And also, yeah, don't touch Brian. That's right. And also, is it our houses going to sell faster and get more offers at the end of the year, or slower, as in they might sit on the market for a week or 2 or 3 weeks by the end of the year this year? So let's all vote. What do we think is going to happen to the market? Is it going to get better, or is it going to slow down?
I feel like the market's trying to stabilize, and I don't really have a reason for my prediction, but I'm hoping that it's going to go back to this way it used to be, where the spring was the big hot market, and then the rest of the year it just kind of dwindles down until January and then comes back in the spring again. So I'm hoping that we're in that period right now.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too, Emily. It'd be nice to get back to normalness, even though it's been a great several years for all of us in the flipping business. You know, I'm looking at the feedback, and, you know, normally when I ask, people are always saying the market's going to keep getting better. It's going to keep increasing, but the general feedback is it's going to slow down a little bit. Kathy says, no idea. You're the smart one, Kathy, because, right. Slow down. If interest rate, I think we might do some work increase, just my guess. Well, very, very well said. And a couple people brought up interest rates. If interest rates do drop, will that speed up the market? That's a good question. I think a lot of people think that's the case. It probably is, but well, I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens with values in this, or with interest rates in the second half of the year. So far, the Fed keeps saying that they're going to keep raising a little bit. So we'll see. All right. So thanks for the poll. I love polls. You know, even though none of us really know, it's always good to see where everybody's thinking. So I do want to share. I just looked up a few predictions on the internet just for funsies. So bankrate.com says values are going to remain flat nationwide through the second half of the year. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, is saying the values will drop 1.8% nationally between now and the end of the year. Fannie Mae says values will drop 1.2% nationally between now and the end of the year. And John Burns, who's a real estate economist that I kind of follow quite a bit, is saying values will drop 4.5% in the St. Louis metro area. He's St. Louis specific between now and the end of the year. So just a couple people out there putting out predictions. So anyway, that's generally what I have to say about the state of the market. Anybody got any other comments or feedback on what we talked about with the state of the market, either in the first half of the year or where we're going? All right. Well, we'll put a wrap on that. We'll come back in December or January and see how we're doing at that point. Suzanne, you want to see if we got anybody want to talk about wins or challenges this week?
Yeah. So now we just have like open discussion for the next 20 minutes or however long you guys want to take. So anyone recently list a property for rent or for sale, or get anything under property or under contract, if I could talk? Oh, quiet group today. Okay. Anyone have any challenges or issues that they want to discuss or brainstorm on, or things they're thinking about? It could be with the current property, issues finding deals. Are people still having issues finding deals? I feel like that's been continuing. Bantian's nodding his head.
You know, I tell you just another anecdotal story here. You know, obviously pay attention to what the Fast House guys are doing. And also I talk to a lot of other investors around town, and the ones that are doing direct to seller marketing have definitely picked up in the month of June. Quite a bit, as a matter of fact. So I think there is some additional supply coming. So I don't know if it's only been like a month, so that's not like a long trend. It might be just a coincidence, but I was talking to the Fashion House guys who said that. Who else did I talk to the other day? I've talked to a couple other people that said the same thing. I'm trying to draw a blank on who it was, but anyway, it seems like activity is picking up.
That made me think. I'm curious to see where people's leads currently are coming from. Just to see, because I feel like, does anyone else feel like they're at least starting to see more deals get shopped to them? Or you feel like it's still been pretty quiet and well, anyways, it was interesting because I feel like this year we have been seeing more deals come from the MLS than we have in a long time. So I feel like that's been an interesting lead source. And we do have quite a few people buying direct to seller or from their network, like they're getting a warm referral from a friend who knows someone or stuff like that. So I do think it's a good reminder to always talk to wholesalers, keep talking to them, but also just talk to other people in your network because you never know who you might know who has something.
Nick's been getting houses from referrals. He's got a couple, and I would say that, yeah, we are probably getting more being shopped to us from people we know.
Why do you think that is? Just because people know what you're looking for? Or?
I think because, honestly, everybody's hearing about sell a house, that's big. But also it might just be because, they're starting to know that you also buy houses and, hey, I got a friend, or hey, I know somebody. It just feels better than trying to find an agent or trying to find somebody.
Yeah, because you guys have picked up, like you guys have bought more.
I love the you guys. Okay, see, but it's actually my loving husband keeps buying houses.
You didn't buy any of them,
I'm
Alexis?
sure he's looking right now at one. Yes. I thought we had paused, but yes, he's interested in something. So yeah. And him usually interested means, hey, I'm at this house and I bought it.
Oh, very cool.
Well, I just looked, and of the last 25 loans that have got brought in, 16 of them came from wholesalers. And then 6 of them came from agents. And then the rest were like networking or direct to seller stuff. So I know sometimes it can be hard trying to find stuff through wholesalers, but definitely keep at it because they do exist. Well, anyone else have any challenges or thing they'd like to brainstorm on? Michael, you have something?
No, I just was going to say that I think the quality of, maybe it's just because I'm a small player, but I think the quality of the leads from some of these wholesalers are kind of dropping a bit. Nick called me to go and view one. I think it was yesterday morning, and we got to the curb and we're like, nope. That's about as far as we got. And that was like the second house we saw in that condition, at least for me, because I went by one and I hit the accelerator and ducked and got out of that neighborhood. And then we went to the one and it was just a no-go. And that's the only thing that, and in fact, I think I got the last 2 deals I have through the MLS.
When you guys see a list price from a wholesaler, do you guys make an offer every time? If you're interested in the property, or if you see the ask price is too high, do you all just walk away and pass? Walk away and pass. Rick, do you always make an offer if you're interested in
No,
it, even if the numbers don't?
if the price looks too high, I just don't go look at it usually.
Well, I will share anecdotally, just from talking to people, the people who have been buying from wholesalers, just make an offer if they're interested in the property, and they just give them the number that works for them. And some people are actually getting stuff. So I think if it's a house that you're interested on and in the area and the scope of work that you want, I don't think it hurts to throw out prices, even if it's, not where they're asking, because you just never know. I just looked at a house in Soulard that people just weren't asking on, and you never know when they'll accept an offer, even if it's not, what they're wanting.
Well, I'll say if you're wanting to buy from wholesalers, from my experience, what's most important is the relationship more than the deal. So if somebody sends you a deal, and you want to actively buy houses from that particular wholesaler or any wholesalers in general, it's important to go look at it, because the relationship is more important than the deal. Because the goal, I always have the goal when you're buying from wholesalers is to not buy the stuff that they send out to everybody, have them send you what you want. And the only way you can get to that point is go look at the houses that they sent out, give them feedback on it, and make offers wherever you want, where you need to be. And then start building the relationship that way, and then continue to build a relationship through maybe you grab coffee with them, maybe grab lunch with them, but helping them get better at their business. So if if you don't know that particular wholesaler, or if you're not that, you got enough deals in your pipeline, you don't need any more deals, not a big deal. But if you want to buy from wholesalers, always remember that the relationship is more important than that particular deal. And then, so what that means is treat that deal as important as any deal out there to help build that relationship. So just a little feedback from my perspective on buying from wholesalers.
And that doesn't mean you have to buy every house, but you
No.
can give them feedback like, hey, this is too big of a rehab for me, or this isn't in the right area, or whatever.
I mean, what's the worst? I've wholesaled a lot of houses in my career, and the worst thing that happens is you send out a deal and nobody gives you any feedback. Nobody goes and looks at it. That's what you hate, So be the guy that at least goes and looks at it, run your numbers, and give them an offer and tell them where you'll be. There's been many times that I've offered on wholesalers deals before that were way below their asking price, and sometimes they even had to go back and renegotiate with the seller. But in the end, we ended up getting the deal because we did that. Now, that, like Suzanne said, that doesn't mean you buy every deal, because not every house is a deal, or is not every house is one that works for you. But I will tell you, you're not going to buy houses from wholesalers if you don't go look at them, make offers, and build a relationship. The relationship is more important than the deal. That's the key takeaway. Who else has got something to talk about today? I got one other thing I'll just throw out. Since we were talking about the state of the market, in general, we kind of all said that we don't know what the heck's going to happen with the market the second half of the year, but it appears that values may flatten out or even back up just a little bit in the second half of the year. That's what the general consensus says it is, of us all is. So what do we do in that kind of environment? Do we do anything differently? My take on it would be, you still buy houses, it's if we're in this business, we don't just stop because values stop going up. We figure out how to make money in this environment, and values may keep going up, and houses may keep selling over list price. We don't know, but since so many of us believe that values may flatten out or even back up a little bit, keep that in mind when you're buying houses. So if that's the case, I would suggest that you stay a little bit more in what you know. So if you're typically a Florissant North County buyer, don't buy your first one in South City over the next few weeks. If you're typically a St. Charles kind of guy, don't go to North County over the next few months. That's kind of thing. Also, if you're typically used to buying houses that are $30,000 or $40,000 fixes, don't go buy $100,000 fix right now. It's not the time to do it, because the market can shift between now and when you sell the house. I don't think it's going to shift much because inventory is so low. For housing values to drop, inventory is going to have to increase, and it's going to take some time for that to happen. But don't count on the house selling at list price or over list price, because I think that's what a lot of people have been doing over the last couple of years and getting away with it. So just be careful about that over the next period of time is, I guess, what I'd suggest. Any other thoughts on that, Suzanne, or anybody else?
I do know some people, when they run comps and the market is like it's been hot and then they think it may slow down, they, instead of looking at sale prices, they look at sale prices, but they also look at list prices, and they lean more on the list price, so they don't have to rely on that, like one outlier selling for 30,000 over. They're not just paying attention just that one. So I think just making sure you're not just, you know, leaning on outliers to figure out your values, because how you run your numbers, like how deep you buy a house, that's like what determines your profit, you know? So just be careful when you are comping houses, and pay attention to, like, if you haven't done anything for a bit, rehabbing costs have continued to go up. And everyone I talk to has been continuously going over their rehab budget. So make sure to pay attention to that too when you're looking at buying. But now's a good time to just, you know, be a little bit more conservative, but don't like take your foot off the gas pedal. You know, be conservative, but still make offers and, you know, be as competitive as you can. Tyler asked, are we seeing more loans for flips or rentals? For sure, more flips. I will say our rentals, we almost always have a 50-50 ratio, and pretty much everything has been flips, or people who were going to rent out a house are now changing it over and it's going to be a flip. And I think it's just because it's hard to make stuff cash flow right now. The exception to that is people who are doing midterm rentals, or, you know, they're buying a 2 or a 4 family, or it's in their like niche and they're happy to leave, you know, 10 or 20 grand into a deal when they refi. But I mean, most people right now are not buying rentals, but I think it's just because of how the market is.
Tyler, what are you doing, man? Show us your pretty face and your handsome voice. You got that radio voice. I haven't heard that today.
Sometimes he's working. So
I
he-
know.
I'm working from home. I'm a little under the weather today, so no DJ voice.
I love that DJ voice. So are you buying any rentals? Have you bought anything, or are you looking to buy anything?
I haven't been looking. I've kind of been slacking a little bit, but trying to reset up my pipeline. From what I've seen, Faster House has been cranking out a lot of deals, but everything else that I have sent to me just seems like it's really far, like 50, 60, 70K over what I would think my offer would be. And at that point, I don't make an offer. But if it's ballpark, if it's within like 20, 25 or so, I'll try to make an offer. But
Very cool, man. Well, thanks for jumping on and chatting with us. And hopefully we're all buying rentals again soon. It seems like, from my perspective, it seems like most of the people that were buying rentals 2 years ago kind of just put a pause on things, unless they're in the midterm space. There's a lot of people buying rentals in the midterm space. But that's about, seems to be about it. Or I guess, like Suzanne said, if you see a few multifamilies, like Michael, you bought a duplex that you're working on. So Michael Hammond there is buying some rentals, right? You haven't stopped, have you?
No, I have not. What I'm actually doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul.
What do you mean by
So
that? Tell us
what I'm
you
doing
mean
is
by that.
I've got 2 flips right now under the 100K mark, right in that, because I think the demand is really high. So I found some, these 2 units I found, man, I can't remember. I know I found one from a wholesaler. They might be 2 wholesalers, but I bought them about just a little over 100, but the ARV is like 200. So if I could make 25 to 30 or $22,000, $28,000 on both of them, then what I'll do is I'll take that capital and buy something else and just buy the loan down to make sure that it cash flows, and that'll be my rental. That's the only way that it really kind of works for me. Because I don't want to stick any of my own. I'm trying to work it so that I don't stick any of my own money in there. So it's like a 2-to-1 type of thing. So
I mean, and that's a beautiful model too. Make some money off your flips, take that money, put it into a rental and buy your loan down. That is one way to do it these days. So I like that model, Michael.
Yeah, I think that's a good model in this market, because as long as you have cash to, keep in it, then you can keep building a portfolio.
you know what does concern me though is that if rates, I don't think rates will come down. I don't really think they're going to go up. But over the course of when some of these balloon loans that I have, when they're 3 and 4 month or 3 and 4 year fixed period, what concerns me is that the rates stay at or higher in that period of time, and then I have to come to the closing table because I've financed them last year or the year before or what have you at 4.5%. And I have to come to the table with a lot of capital to buy that thing down so that it does cash flow. That's what concerns me. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
A legitimate concern.
I have been seeing people when their tenants move out and they know their balloon's coming in a year or so, they've been just cleaning them up and selling them because people have that concern, and then they're keeping their others, but they're selling off one to utilize that cash in preparation for that. And I think, Michael, it's good that you're thinking ahead, because that is going to be a problem for people. So thinking about that is good. Amber said that she is doing the same thing right now, 2 projects. So Amber, just to clarify, you're having 2 rehabs right now that you're just trying to make money on, and then hopefully roll that into a rental.
Yeah, actually, we bought 2 properties at the same time with the intention of renting them both. But because of the cash flow and the interest rates currently, our first one will be done by the end of the week. That one we're going to rent out. And then the second property, we're going to try to flip, hopefully be able to pull 25 to 30,000 out of it, essentially to do exactly as Mark described.
Yep. Good. Yeah, I feel like that model does work well when you can do one and get a chunk of money and then just roll it into your other deal.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like over time, the market always takes care of itself. So if we got all these investors that used to be buying rentals, and now they're either selling them when they become vacant because of cash flow issues, or they're not buying because they can't get them to cash flow, something's going to happen. Less inventory, maybe rents are going to go up to fix the problem. I still kind of tend to think that over the next year or 2, values are going to come down a little bit. Interest rates are going to come down a little bit to fix the problem, but somehow the problem will get fixed. I believe because I don't know, the market just figures it out over time. Unless the government just keeps giving everybody money, then that might mess things up. Because I feel like that's what's kind of got us in the situation we're in. But so we'll see what happens. But either way, we'll figure it out. Because real estate, there's so many options, so many things you can do in real estate, and real estate investors are creative. They always figure it out. Anyway.
From a loans perspective, are you guys seeing more arms on the back end for any other rentals?
We're really not. I mean, most people are, honestly, it's hard to say because we've been seeing so few refis, like way less. And I guess I don't always know what they're doing, but most of the time they're going to, like, I think, what bank does Michael Schiffer work for? Is that People's First?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're getting a loan through
Bank
like
and Trust.
People's Bank and Trust, or they're going to FCB. They're having, a lot of people are having to change up where they're getting loans from because a lot of their other people stopped doing loans, but First State Bank St. Charles. And I think they're still just getting, a 20 or a 25-year that balloon, you know, that amortizes every 3 years. So, but we're seeing very few 30-year fixed refis. I keep hearing about a lot of nationwide investors that are doing those DFCR loans, but we haven't seen much of them from a refi perspective. So
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Certainly.
I think I need to look at more flips in the meantime. I have like, I don't know if it's sunk cost fallacy, but like, man, if I have to work so hard to find a deal, it's like, I don't want to get rid of it. I want to keep it.
I like your philosophy, you know, I don't know about the work so hard part, but I like the keeping it part because I
Yeah.
like to keep houses.
Dude, I'll tell you something right now. It took me like months to get over that. It's like, the numbers are the numbers. And I felt the same way. It's like, oh, this place looks great. I work really hard to go get it, yada, yada, yada. And then I'm like, I'm super proud of it. It came out great. Don't want to sell it. But the reality is that, man, you gotta learn to sell them in order to get, enough money to make the next one work better.
I think it's good to be logical in this environment because it's easy to get like, I know I fall in love with houses and I get like emotionally attached sometimes, but I feel like just relying on like the numbers are the numbers and what way makes the most sense and what still keeps me excited and going. But it is hard when you search forever to find a deal. You're like, what? I know we had that issue. We had a house we were going to rehab and then we just decided not to. And I was bummed. So I was like, I know what to do with it. But the numbers are the numbers. And sometimes you just have to, like your crew and stuff like that, like is what it is. So always have to have faith there's another deal out there.
Well, if it cash flows now and we do see rates drop, right? I mean, refining and taking advantage of that, that'd be icing on the cake.
Yep. That would be great if that could happen. And it will. I mean, someday rates will drop down again. I mean, rates are meant to change. But all right, well, we are at 1 o'clock. So thanks everyone for joining. I am working on getting a case study put together for next week. So I'd love to see you all next week if you can make it. I haven't finalized it yet though. So I'll work on that and send out an email again and hopefully we can see you all a week from today. But thanks for
guys.
joining.
Thanks, guys. Bye.